How can Jimmy Kimmel live with him? Like, Jimmy Kimmel is a talented guy, and I don't think he's like an evil person or something, but he's made this deal where he just serves power and attacks anybody who challenges power. Like, how can, honestly, how can he look in the mirror and say, I'm doing something honorable? Like, how can he live with himself? How can his wife sleep with him?
Well, it'd be
I mean
it'd be one thing.
He's had a real problem with Elon from the beginning of this thing, but it's like he's in this leftist thought bubble. He is in the most leftist thought bubble available, which is Hollywood.
Jimmy Kimmel believed he was impervious to criticism until he became a walking punchline thanks to Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson. 1 minute he was making jokes, the next he was catching verbal abuse from two men who had no filter or capacity for forgiveness, and Rogan was calling out the cringe. Tucker is beaming as if it were Christmas, and Kimmel is somewhere backstage reconsidering his life decisions. This is not merely a roast, it's a burning dumpster of harsh reality and no mercy, so fasten your seatbelts because it gets wonderfully dirty.
Treating each other equally is joking about each other indiscriminately. So yeah, I think comedians who, and this is why so much of comedy is not funny today. It's my chief criticism of like late night comedy, which I find unwatchable. I think it's totally unwatchable. But
also contemptible. I mean, they're collaborators.
They're just like the fact checkers. They're guardians of the narrative.
Watching a late night host receive ruthless justice from two men who don't even acknowledge one other's existence is strangely satisfying. One of them is a former MMA commentator who runs a podcast empire based on conspiracy theories and elk meat. The story didn't begin with a bang. Rather, it began with a whimper and a few stale jokes from Kimmel put together by a group of writers who obviously gave up after Trump left office. The late-night monologue machine, which had once been mildly entertaining, had turned into a 5-minute corporate TED Talk punctuated by applause signs. The other is a cable news outlaw who left a smoking crater where Fox News once stood, with Jimmy Kimmel flailing like a dad at Coachella attempting to prove he still understands what TikTok is.
There's not a chance in hell that this is funny or going to work. And when you see those flat, corny, late-night monologue jokes with no audience, Colbert, there's Jimmy Kimmel, there's Fallon. What they're doing is just like reading off of a teleprompter. So a bunch of really good joke writers wrote them some stuff, and then they're playing to the audience, and the audience is like laughing, so they get this feedback, and they know how to do that. They stand there, and there's applause signs, and then there's producers. There's the warm-up guy that's literally telling people to applaud. They're like, okay, explain to the people. Yeah. Okay, when Jimmy comes out, I want a big round of applause. Let's practice this right now.
Additionally, Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson didn't require a concerted attack when they eventually focused on this monument of mediocrity. Kimmel's self-satisfied comic style essentially fell apart. Carlson and Rogers simply brought the firewood up first. In a recent episode of his podcast, Joe Rogan, who has made a living by encouraging scientists, comedians, and Bigfoot believers to talk openly for 3 hours straight, swung between a debate about DMT and the reasons why contemporary shoes are damaging our arches. Rogan easily destroyed the idea of mainstream comedy by describing a washed-up host who presents reheated political zingers penned by staffers and passes it off as edgy without naming names. Rogers' contempt was delightfully ambiguous, like a fine wine of passive-aggressive scorn, and he made fun of the sterile written format of late-night shows without having to hold up. There is only one person whose tears hit the teleprompter. Kimmel's name resembles a medal. The humor Rogan encourages uncomfortable long tangents and guests that say things that you shouldn't agree with, according to Kimmel's perspective. If Rogan's podcast is the Wild West of ideas, then safe sarcasm with a studio audience conditioned like Pavlov's dog's Kimmel's program is a Disney cruise supported by political correctness and flu vaccines. The true insult was that Roger, the man who was demonized for challenging public health myths, received 11 million downloads for each episode. Like a wrecked boat in a shark tank, viewers are being hemorrhaged by corporate clown Kimmel.
If his job wasn't to be a comedian and to do that, but his job is to be he's supposed to be funny, and comedians are supposed to hold people in positions of power accountable.
Suck up
to
the people in charge.
Exactly.
He's their Praetorian guard.
Yeah.
And it's like, the self-hatred he must feel, because he wasn't always, that's my point. Yeah. I mean, Colbert has always been a hard partisan, talented guy, but obviously he's not a comedian. But Kimmel was a comedian. Like, how does I don't understand.
I don't know
how he can sleep.
He might buy into the narrative to the extent that he thinks it's morally wrong to joke about these these certain topics.
But it's not just that. He's like pouring hot oil on the peasants from the parapet.
The ridiculousness almost speaks for itself when Rogan laughs his way to a $200 million Spotify deal while Kimmel makes fun of him in a suit. The king of cable chaos turned social media sniper Tucker Carlson lit Kimmel on fire with a smile and walked away humming patriotic music after Rogan roasted him with casual contempt. One guy peddles truth-seeking while holding a weed, while the other delivers punchlines with the vigor of a hotel lobby piano player. The Fox Tucker has accepted his inner cyber criminal. Tucker has a webcam and a grudge against every talking head who is still holding onto his SAG card in one of his viral pieces. There are no longer any FCC rules or executive producers acting like they have power. Tucker delivered a monologue that dismantled the precise kind of host who hides snobbery behind canned laughter, slicing through Hollywood hypocrisy like a warm chainsaw through tofu without ever granting Kimmel the dignity of a name. Tucker contended that late-night comedians have turned into human teleprompters, creating safe content that has been authorized by sponsors, studio executives, and focus groups. Again, no names are necessary when the shoe fits so tightly that it stops the blood flow.
Pouring hot oil on the peasants from the parapet.
Right.
Like he's hurting anyone who challenges the king. Right. It's crazy.
It is crazy. It's upside down. The comedians should be poking holes in the popular narrative, not propping it up.
Jimmy Kimmel is. Like, truly. No, I mean it.
You said it,
no
not me.
amount of money is worth what he's doing, in my opinion.
Yeah. But it's how they control speech and thought. If your worldview is incoherent and impossible to defend rationally,
yes,
then you have to insulate it from criticism. And what's the most effective kind of criticism there is? I think it's mockery, which exposes foolishness for what it is. So it makes perfect sense to me.
It was about relevancy rather than ratings. Carlson joyfully pointed out that these so-called comedy rebels spend more time promoting pharmaceuticals than cracking jokes. They suddenly sound like walking disclaimers, the so-called monarchs of satire. The irony of this takedown is that neither Rogan nor Tucker ever shared a stage. They didn't plan a hit show, they simply happened to shine a flashlight on the same soggy corner of showbiz where Kimmel was busy tap dancing in a puddle of his own ego. Rogan laughed at the absurdity, and together, without ever meeting, they engineered one of the most glorious tag team obliterations in recent media memory. Kimmel, once a rogue voice in comedy, now performs as though he's auditioning for a position at the CDC's birthday party committee. What's worse for Kimmel is how avoidable it all was. He could have remained humorous and avoided becoming the target of jokes, but somewhere along the line, he traded charisma for applause and comedy for corporate approval. Now, instead of making people laugh, he makes them check the time. The thing is, Roger didn't have to insult Kimmel directly. He just needed to embody everything that Kimmel gave up: authenticity, unpredictability, and charm. Carlson had the audacity to insult Carlson without even bringing up Kimmel. He only needed to juxtapose his own style of fiery, if occasionally crazy, truth-telling with a vacuous performance of late-night humor.
I was mistaken about this. It's something I admit I was wrong about, is when early on, when we first started getting fact-checked and we first started having these issues with censorship with the Babylon Bee, it was my belief that these were humorless scolds who just didn't think our jokes were funny, and they thought they were offensive and they were being hypersensitive. And that's not the
No,
case.
it's not. You're going through the stages of realization.
The stages of realization. I eventually learned and came to realize that it's not humor. Humor is a vehicle for truth delivery. Exactly. They don't like the fact that the narrative is being challenged in a way that's effective. Yes. And so they have to shut you up.
The outcome, even though their audiences couldn't be more different, Kimmel appears to be the awkward middle manager at a Christmas party attempting to DJ. Roger's supporters are fiercely devoted, tattooed, and most likely fermenting their own kombucha. It's not even a contest, it's a demolition. This wasn't a war of equals. It was a one-sided roast cooked on two different grills. Tucker's viewers are politically fervent meme-wielding insomniacs who treat every episode like a gladiatorial match. Kimmel's audience members are those who fell asleep with the remote in their hands or got lost on their way to The View. Tucker flamed him with righteous fury and a dash of smugness, while Roger smoked him slowly and dryly with sarcastic sarcasm. Kimmel simply stood there, the human equivalent of a please clap, while both men maintained their dominance over their own domains. Kimmel continues to operate in a manner that even cable news avoided, while Rogan, while promoting politics through comedy, investigates psychedelic awareness and attacks by feral pigs with astrophysicists. And not only was Kimmel roasted, But he was roasted in stereo, as Tucker joyfully launches video bombs from a place that resembles a mid-century bunker. Despite having very different ideologies, two voices, one from the right-wing fury machine of post-cable media and the other from the left-wing libertarian anarchy of podcasts, found common ground in the rich soil of Kimmel's failure. That is a warning sign with a laugh track, not a coincidence.
In that case, you think that's him or a writer? Can't you tell?
Jimmy Kimmel?
Yeah.
No, it's him for sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
good. That's a good one.
He's a comic.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I mean, he used to host the Man Show. I mean, he's done some pretty outrageous shit back in the day.
Yeah.
You know, for hee-hees and haw-haws.
No, that's a good joke on top of a good joke.
Yeah, it's a good joke. Funny thing to say. He's had a real problem with Elon from the beginning of this thing, but it's like he's in this leftist thought bubble.
Uh-huh.
He is in the most leftist thought bubble available, which is Hollywood. And, you know, and I think also, you know, he famously, there's some videos of him in blackface, and those came out, and he had apologized for them. And I think he took that hit and like really doubled down in the other direction. I mean, that's just speculation. But he, you know, now is a guy that goes after people like Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, Elon is thought of as being, because he's willing to put people on with uncomfortable opinions, and he's like releasing people that were banned from Twitter because of things that they had said. He's like, as long as you haven't done anything illegal, I'll let you back.
Tucker doesn't beg for forgiveness, and Rogan doesn't want approval. Kimmel's program is a time capsule of a long-gone political moment, and every time he opens his mouth, it's like watching someone try to sell stale milk with a wink. The worst part is that he is trapped trying to get chuckles from a crowd that has already left the building. Tucker Carlson and Joe Rogan, if they tried, they couldn't be more different. Joe is the laid-back, conspiracy-friendly podcast host of Gods Himself, a mixed martial arts podcast with a facial tattoo. They are ideological opposites on the political chessboard like fire and ice or broccoli, and well, broccoli but a different kind, but somehow these two utterly different beasts have no trouble agreeing on one thing. Tucker, the smug, smirking, mustache-twirling political provocator who was jeered by Fox News but somehow returned stronger than a cat with 9 lives. Jimmy Kimmel's comedy is the theatrical equivalent of a beige wallpaper pattern, safe, sanitized, corporately approved, and just plain boring enough to make you wonder, did I just watch a comedy show or a pharma commercial? Kimmel's comedy is a fossil, an endangered species, an exhibit behind glass labeled "Do Not Touch Extinct" since 2015. His jokes aren't punchlines. They're memo-approved statements about vaccine mandates and woke politics, accompanied by awkward fake laughter and that dead-eyed smile that shouts, "I'm paid to pretend this is funny." The poor guy is like a late-night dinosaur trying to roar, but all anyone hears is a cough.
There are a lot of people who are like on your side because they're for free speech, who are not actually for free speech at all, who are pushing, a very specific foreign policy agenda, for example, and using another issue to lower your defenses and let themselves into your brain. And I think that's really sinister, really, really, really sinister. And it's becoming more obvious now. Like if you're for free speech, then you're just for free speech because you support the principle. It doesn't, the content of the speech is not that interesting to you.
Now Carlson and Rogan they are, on the contrary, the chaotic neutral and chaotic good forces that are dismantling the traditional late-night mold. Like there are a lot of old jokes in this pie. Joe's podcast is similar to the Wild West of free speech, with lengthy, convoluted discussions covering everything from alien conspiracies to the benefits of kale as a salad. It's raw and messy, and it doesn't care whether a corporate sponsor feels anxious in the interim. While Kimmel is stuck giving 5-minute monologues with all the energy of a man reading the terms and conditions on a software update, Tucker's postbox grind is all about quick, viral hits and a digital sniper that targets the very foundation of Kimmel's meticulously planned world. There are no canned jokes or laugh tracks, only cold, calculated snark and the kind of smirk that could cut through steel. Rogan has developed a cult-like following thanks to his 3-hour episodes that delve deeply into subjects that people genuinely want to hear about. His ability to freely explore questions and occasionally just ramble about DMT trips has also helped him amass millions of views on social media more quickly than Kimmel can say. Pharmaceutical collaboration Kimmel is essentially the late-night equivalent of a rotary phone in an era of iPhones. His audience is either asleep or has moved on to more promising places where comedy isn't accompanied by virtual signaling and a dash of corporate shame. Some find it nostalgic, but the majority find it wildly outdated.
The job description of a comedian is not so different from the job description of a journalist, as traditionally constituted. Tell the truth about the powerful. Comedians are usually a lot smarter, more clever, and incisive than journalists, but that's what they're supposed to be doing. Almost none still do. Adam Carolla is one of the very few remaining comedians in the United States. He's out with a new book called Everything Reminds Me of Something.
The real comedy, however, is that Gold Kimmel didn't simply fade into obscurity. Rather, this was a spectacular self-emulation. He started by making fun of regular Americans for not getting vaccinated, only to see half of them cancel his show more quickly than you could say, no. It would be like telling your friends they're stupid for skipping leg day and then tripping over your own shoelaces on the treadmill. Then there was the time he attempted to make fun of Ryan. Oh, the irony. Kimmel's most scathing remark was essentially a recycled insult from a brainstorming session in the writer's room, and Rogan answered by thoroughly explaining why Kimmel never conducts any research before criticizing others. Spoiler alert. Rogan is the one who invites actual doctors and scientists to debate, and Kimmel is the one who invites a famous guest who recently starred in a movie about a talking dog. In the meantime, Tucker went full Phoenix mode, broke free from the corporate leash, gained a sizable following on social media, and now has more cultural significance than Kimmel's entire monologue archive. It's like watching a toddler attempt to dunk on LeBron James and constantly getting plastered.
Ode to obscurity. Nobody's going to care anymore. It's like you're seeing it take place with late night television. Nobody gives a fuck about it anymore.
I know.
And it's slowly, you have a bad business model and you're not adapting.
Yeah, the creativity's gone for late night comedy, right? Like, that's not really a thing anymore.
The important lesson Rogan and Tucker discovered the formula for a comeback. Kimmel never bothered to find out that Joe started his business from scratch, using a small garage studio, a few cannabis jokes, and an unvarnished, unadulterated style that captured the attention of millions of people. While Kimmel is trapped in a time loop, reading off jokes about Trump from 5 years ago and acting as though being edgy means repeating the same old lines while seated behind a desk sponsored by Big Pharma, Tucker rebuilt his brand from the ashes of corporate exile and became a digital-age media powerhouse that doesn't need a TV contract to be heard. If comedy were a battlefield, Tucker and Rogan would be throwing verbal grenades while Kimmel would still be raising a white flag. No, Rogan and Tucker didn't need to work together because the ultimate irony is delicious. Kimmel attempted to punch up at two giants from opposite sides of the arena and succeeded in punching himself square in the process. It's a roast nobody asked for, but everyone is watching the guy who tried to make fun of Rogan's dangerous ideas, and Tucker's fired for a reason. Kimmel's demise was a natural collision course, similar to tectonic plates grinding beneath the surface, until the entire delicate late-night comedy world broke open. At the center of it all, Kimmel became the cultural eye roll. It was too safe, too scripted, and too out of touch to survive in a media ecosystem that now values authenticity, unpredictability, and a little chaos. Let's face it, watching Kimmel try to keep up is like watching a mime desperately trying to talk. It's awkward, embarrassing, and you can't turn away. The damage is irreversible. Instead of just laughing, Rogers' audience nodded in understanding agreement, while Tucker's supporters did more than simply applaud. They made it into a movement, a meme, and most likely a badly worded t-shirt. Kimmel continued reading from the cue card, blissfully oblivious to the fact that the individuals he once made fun of were now doing it better. What's left of Kimmel is a studio band and a warning story. A man who was once humorous has been turned to a human bumper sticker for whatever caused the polls that week favor. He isn't witty or edgy, and because of Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson, he isn't even immune to mockery anymore because of this last joke. Neither of these men intended to discredit Jimmy Kimmel. They simply spoke the truth, and in a society where Kimmel's truth is whatever is cheered at prior to commercial breaks, the candor may be the most offensive joke of all.